All righty. Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate you holding this hearing. You're doing a wonderful job of really enlightening us on so many important issues as it pertains to energy and water. And I want to thank our witnesses for testifying also today. Today is a pretty important day from my perspective, in that Congressman VC and McKinley and I introduced the bipartisan, I always love being able to say that, bill called the Storing CO2 and Lowering Emissions Act. And because we like acronyms, we call it the SCALE Act. And what it would do, this flows perfectly into this discussion that we're having around Lois Frankel's question that she just asked. It would make critical infrastructure investments in carbon capture and storage, so we can have net zero emission, an economy driven by that. So the SCALE Act is estimated to directly and indirectly create nearly 13,000 jobs per year over each of the next 5 years. And I'm from the state of Illinois. We in our state would be fourth in the nation in terms of new jobs created as a result of this legislation. That's why I'm pretty excited about it. So, Ms. Brown, I have a question for you. You started hinting at this just a little bit with Lois Frankel's question, but can you speak to the benefits that the SCALE Act would have in terms of jobs for steel workers? And specifically, I'd like to learn more about the indirect impact this legislation from your perspective when it comes to things like feeder lines and facilities that would be associated with a large scale transport infrastructure system.
Definitely. And thank you so much for the question, Congresswoman. I think, again, this is an extension of what we were just talking about before about building out the infrastructure to support technologies like carbon capture. And, right now it's completely absent. And we're strong supporters of the SCALE Act, so we really appreciate your leadership there. For our union, I think the jobs benefit would be in a few places. Where the steelworkers, we make steel pipe. And there would be a tremendous potential benefit to steelworker jobs in the United States who are making domestic steel pipe to actually have their products used in the infrastructure to build out these carbon pipelines. So that's one. But in terms of constructing the pipeline itself, you mentioned the trunk line. That would be roughly between 1,200 to 1,500 jobs. Rhodium recently did a study that really broke down the jobs numbers associated with scaling out, not to, no pun intended, the carbon infrastructure. And that was one of the projected job numbers that they put out there. In terms of the operation jobs of the trunk line, it would be between 8 and 20. The feeder lines would be about 200 to 370 jobs in terms of getting that going. The steel, in terms of the steel mills and carbon capture, the jobs that would be associated with creating a carbon capture system at a steel mill would be about 3,000. So there are huge opportunities kind of directly and indirectly in terms of the actual construction, the downstream in terms of the manufacture of the pipe, but then also the operation of the system once it's up and running.
Yeah, that's significant. Great to hear. And anytime we can create union jobs, we're all in. So we're excited about that. I think I have time to ask, and we'll get an answer in the remaining time. But the Energy Act that obviously passed and was signed into law at the end of last year, it authorized $775 million for demonstrations, pilots, front end engineering and design studies into deploying carbon capture at power and industrial facilities. In the congressional district that I represent, we have 7 biofuel refineries that are scattered in and around our congressional district. So, for the broader group, how do you see these robust investments in retrofitting some of our industrial facilities like mills and ethanol refineries, bolstering our domestic manufacturing capacity? And if you could talk about how that would affect job retention and creation. And again, this could be for the broader group. How about if I call on Tom Kerfus?
Sure, I was just about to hit my unmute button there. So I mean, I think basically what this does once again is it makes us more competitive because the bottom line is we see new technology and so forth, and the way that we could really move forward on this is again to leverage the capability of places like the national labs that really do have centralized R&D capability. Again, hub and spoke. Let us work with our industry partners, and we're not going to work in a vacuum. We're working together to see what understand what works, and then let's get it out to the spokes to make sure it's being utilized accordingly and so forth. And then it also continues in terms of what should the new materials be? How do we want to refine it? Part of my operation is all on the chemical processing side and the petrochemical side, and so a lot of the biofuel. So there's a lot of work that could be done there to really help it move forward, including things like sensors. We could measure some of the quantities that people said, well, we just don't quite know what we should be looking for or how to do it. Once we can start to measure it, it's like your O2 sensor on your car. Once you have that thing working and they figured that one out, we can do a lot of things in terms of emissions control and so forth. So just a better understanding of what we have, leveraging our really powerful national lab and university system to really move this forward. Let us take some of the heavy lift out of it so we can move some of these facilities forward.
As much as I would love to hear other people respond to this, my time is up and I will yield back, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair.
Thank you.